would say that we're exploring the mysteries that are hidden in plain sight until the mind relinquishes its need to see things by and with the light of existence. And there's somewhat of an allegory filled with sacred symbols. Let's see what it evokes for us relative to our inquiry into these mysteries. Is the story of a man called Saiful Mulak. Now Saiful Mulak was a seeker, and although he did not have a venerable beard or wear a patchwork cloak, you could call him a would-be dervish. He'd studied the ancient texts. He practiced the spiritual rites that came to his notice. He visited a number of spiritual teachers and masters until one day he heard of the great saintly master who was also a famous poet called Ansahi. So he traveled to the place where Ansahi lived, and when he arrived at Ansahi's abode, he found that there was a sign on the door, "Wisdom for sale." Now, Saiful Mulak was very surprised because it had not been known before that spiritual masters worth their salt did not deal with money. But when he entered the abode of Ansahi, he found him in the garden writing a piece of poetry. And Ansahi immediately said to Saiful Mulak, "Well, do you want wisdom, and how much money have you got?" Well, Saiful Mulak was quite taken aback, and he even questioned Ansari about this. Ansari said, "We are living in existence, and we must use the ways of existence when Baraka, or transmission, will not suffice. So if you want wisdom, give me your money." So Saiful Mulak took out all the silver pieces that he had in his pocket, and so Ansari said to him, "My first piece of wisdom is a small cloud warns of danger." Now Saiful Mulak thought to himself, this is not mystical knowledge, and he verbalized this. So Ansari said, "Wisdom and advice is no good if a man is dead." So Saiful Mulak kept his peace and waited for the next piece of wisdom, and that was, Ansari said, "If you find a bird, a cat, and a dog, take them and take care of them until the end." Now Saiful Mulak thought this was a little bit more wise-like, and he waited for the last piece of advice, which Ansari said, "In due course, all things being equal, and if all goes well, you will find a door through which you must pass." Now Saiful Mulak thought this was quite a wisdom. And so, taking these pieces of wisdom, he left Ansari, who in fact preemptorily sent him on his way, even though Saiful Mulak had thoughts about remaining with him for some time. So Saiful Mulak went on his way, and he did visit several other masters and teachers in the interim time, until one day he found himself in a marketplace, where he saw a man leading away a bird, a cat, and a dog. But then remembering the pieces of wisdom, he referred to his notes because he'd noted all this down, and he thought to himself, well, I haven't seen the cloud that has danger. But at that moment, Saiful Mulak remembered the advice of another master who had said, things do not always follow in sequence. So immediately Saiful Mulak hurried after the man who had the bird, the cat and the dog, and found that he had purchased them because he wanted to keep them safe. So Saiful Mulak was able to buy them from the man and follow the wisdom that had been given, take care of these creatures until the end. Well, of course, with these creatures now, he was not able to move around as he had, so he had to settle down in that place, and he found himself an apprenticeship as a weaver, and he became very adept at weaving, and he was able to keep his animals fed and himself with the earnings that he made from being a weaver. And all was going well for him until one day, when he was out, he looked in the distance, and there was a small cloud. And he suddenly remembered what the wisdom was that was given, that a cloud spelled danger. So he immediately went back to his house and took his bird and the animals and left that place. Well, he came to another city, we call it Bokhara, and when he arrived there, he heard that his previous place of occupation had been invaded by a troop of soldiers who had killed all the inhabitants. But sadly, in Bokhara, he found that people didn't have much use for weavers, and they didn't like animals. So he found himself getting poorer and poorer without the means to take care of his animals, the bird or himself. So there were days when he was without food for himself or these creatures. His stomach grumbled, and it got worse and worse for him, until the time when, in great, great desperation, he said, please, please, I am in dire straits. My animals are starving, as am I myself. Please, you have to help me. Well, nothing really happened until, even with his growling stomach, he was able to fall into a deep sleep where he had a dream that he saw a ring in a crevice, a rock beside a stream. And when he awoke from his dream, immediately he had a quest to find this ring. And indeed he did. He found the stream, He found the rock. He found the crevice. He found the ring. And when he placed the ring on his finger, immediately a great booming voice said to him from somewhere out there or in there, and it said, "You have called me the servant of the great King Sulaiman. Give me your bidding." So immediately Saiful Mulak asked for food for his animals, his bird, and himself, and food was provided. From that time on, he was able to evoke this servant of the great King Sulaiman, who built a small house for him, provided food for them, and so Saiful Mulak and his animals settled in this place, and pretty soon he became known as Saif Baba, because it seemed that even though he did no outward work, all his needs were provided. He would give advice when people came and tell of his own story, his meeting with Ansari, the instructions and wisdom that were given, the duty that was given to him to take care of these animals until the end. And people were very impressed with his dedication and service. But during that time, from time to time, a wandering dervish would come to his door, and they would try to engage Saiful Mulak in debate and to bring to him some further teachings. But Saiful Mulak refused to get into debate with them or to listen to advice, because according to him, he had his duty, he had his instructions, he had his mandate. So they went on their way. Now Saiful Mulak could not help but wonder, because now there was grey in his hair, even his animals and bird were growing older, and the end had not arrived. So he sometimes questioned this and referred to his notes to see perhaps what was going wrong. Where was he erring? But one day he opened his front door to find that there was a dervish encamped there. And this dervish said, "I am Quasar." Now, Quasar in that language means door. But when Quasar attempted to engage Saiful Mulak in talk about spiritual things, again Saiful Mulak would bring up his mandate. So Quasar got very impatient with him and left him in peace. But then, after this, to his very great surprise, his bird began to speak to him in a language that was human, and the bird scolded him and chastened him, saying that the door had appeared many times, but Saiful Mulak had been unheedful of the door. And then his dog spoke to him, again chastening him, scolding him for being remiss, and also his cat. Now Saiful Mulak argued with him. After all, he had taken care of them. In fact, during this last time, he had watched them carefully, learned their ways, and even trained them and taught them. So he thought that he was their master. But the animals and the bird had spoken, and time passed when Saiful Mulak went through that dark time of wondering, could it be that what his animals and bird had said had validity? Where had he erred? And suddenly, one day, he opened his door, and there was Kwasa and all the other dervishes who had made their way to his door, and in each and every one he saw and sympathy. In each and every one he recognized as the great master, saint, and poet, as Sahib. He had found his door through which he passed to become a great Sufi teacher and master. What is the mystery revealed in open sight for us when our mind no longer needs the light of existence to see by, allowing us to recognize the symbols, the archetypes, the characters. What does this story mean for us as we explore these mysteries?